Welcome, friends, to a podcast with interesting people. I'm Adrian Sinclair, and today we will be talking about social media and everything surrounding social media publishing. You're probably wondering, if you are in this space, how you can publish things to multitude of social media platforms, from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, everything, TikTok right now. There's a lot of different platforms. And if you are in this space, if you are publishing stuff, you are quickly finding out that you are so overwhelmed with doing this to all these different platforms. You have different formats, you have different types of files that you need to upload. You need to, every one of those platforms requires something just a tiny little bit different, and then quickly you find out how much time it takes you to actually publish this, and then it takes a lot of fun out of what you're doing, which is content creation. So today I reached out to Arjun Rai, Arjun Rai, who is the founder and CEO of Hello Woofy, and he is an expert in this space where he is trying to build, and he is and his team are building a platform that's already rolling right now, and actually we're using it too, to basically help out podcasters and YouTubers and social media content producers to get everything out there and help you do it efficiently. And in addition to doing that, what they are doing is very interesting. Using some machine learning, using some artificial intelligence components to help out the likes of us to make it more efficient. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Arjun and talk about what we are going to be exploring today, which is doing this tool evaluation, and then talking about this space and how you guys can utilize what he has to better produce stuff for on your platform. So, Arjun, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you being here and taking the time to doing this. And before we're going to start talking about your platform in detail, what do you see that are some of the main challenges that businesses, especially small businesses, have right now when they are trying to publish into these social media platforms? What do you see that's happening there, and what do you see that's going to happen next to that can give them an edge?
Yeah. So thanks again, Adrian, for the introduction. Hi everyone. My name is Arjun, like Argentina without the Tina. My whole mission with Hello Woofy and for everyone here at the company is to support small businesses with a categorically new product, a new platform that is built inherently for small businesses by small businesses. And the reason I say that is because small businesses, especially today with COVID-19 and all the way the economy is going, you've had to reinvent the way you do any kind of marketing. Whether you're doing traditional marketing, that has dried up, right? Retail has changed so much. Whether you're doing digital marketing, any different kinds of digital marketing, you're doing social media marketing, whatever that may be, it's very apparent that today you have to be doing social media marketing, you have to be doing content marketing in order to succeed, no matter which line of business you're in. But the unfortunate circumstances, small businesses don't have the means to keep up with their biggest competitors. What that means is the biggest competitors in their industry have unlimited marketing budgets, capital-wise. They have unlimited number of people working on any given campaign. They have unlimited levels of experience and expertise and data that they're basing their decisions off. How does a small business owner in the same category as the biggest competitor compete? Well, the only way they can compete is by focusing on what they are really good at, which is storytelling, being creative, and not getting into the whole grunt work, the time suck of creating content, curating content, scheduling content, analyzing content, then learning from what actually worked, and making sure that you're not doing the same thing over and over again that isn't working for you. So to your point, machine learning and artificial intelligence alleviates the small business owner that doesn't have a lot of capital to begin with, that doesn't have an army of people working on all of their social media and marketing initiatives, and now content marketing, since we support auto-completing entire blog posts for small businesses as well. That level of data science doesn't exist for the price of a cup of coffee. And so I always like to say, I love making my own coffee and drink, making it, in the morning and grinding my own beans and everything. If I can provide you a data-driven, AI-driven, categorically new product that gives you an unfair advantage as an SMB, wouldn't you want to spend the price of a cup of coffee to alleviate yourself of the time suck and the grunt work that goes into it, right? So, like, for example, as you start typing in posts in our platform, it automatically completes the words and sentences for you. Double click on the word, it'll give you emoji recommendation. Now, you talked about emojis. Emojis drive insane amounts of uplift and engagement. And don't take my opinion for it. Take Adobe, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. Take a look at their emoji trend report. They spend a lot of money on it. And if you take a look at the report, you can see anywhere from 40 to 50 to 64% uplift in engagement and also purchase intent. So now that's the tool we built that programmatically helps you with all of that.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's almost like a visual shorthand with emojis, right? To have them kind of even like, because with the amount of content that's being produced right now, everybody's looking for some kind of a shortcut in terms of what is this message about? Do I care about it, right? So even words are too lengthy, which is kind of scary because I don't know where the future is going to be. Maybe we're just going to have like hieroglyphics and we're just going to just communicate in images, Me, need, food. Yeah, 3 emojis, good. It's like, I don't know what to think about it. But the study that you mentioned, the trend that's happening with a lot of people using emojis in all of the messages is definitely here, and it's happening. And of course, you can do that manually. And your stuff is just that much smarter that it basically just automatically suggests the icons or the emojis that you can kind of plug in over there. So, but before you're going to jump into to that, I want to ask you a couple of things. You mentioned 2 things: content marketing and SMB. So define that for those of the audience viewers who are not familiar with those terms. What is content marketing to you?
Content marketing. So you may have heard the biggest proponents of social media marketing and digital marketing, like Neil Patel and Gary Vaynerchuk, Mary Smith. All these individuals, they are huge, personalities. But the way they got there is through pushing out a lot of content, just right. Day in and day out, hourly, daily, weekly. They just push out a lot of content. And they do, in some cases, they have, long form content that's sliced up into small short form content that is then rescheduled to go out over and over again. And that's, evergreen content. The point of the matter is, and they'll agree with this, is that small businesses have to do the exact same thing, especially today when, people are not going to the store anymore because of the situation that we find ourselves in with COVID-19. They're only finding you online. They're only Google searching you through content marketing. They're only going on social media and searching for the next hot tool. And depending on who, comes to the top, that's the person that's the company that's going to make the most revenue. So in our case, what we wanted to make sure is that small businesses, not only were we helping them with social media marketing and social media management, which is, automatically completing the words and sentences for you as you're starting to type, give you the right emojis, give you the right hashtags. When you upload a graphic, it'll detect what's in the graphic and what's happening, and then give you hashtags depending on that. That was all great for social media marketing. But then we were like, we need to help small businesses do another form of marketing, which is long form content. So not just short form, but long form content that'll live on your blog, live in press releases, live in, guest blogging and, situations like that. We can literally help you autocomplete entire long form pieces of content in 30 to 40% less time. So literally what that means is you're typing an article, which you may do once a month, or you may do it like once a year because you just don't have time and you may not know what to talk about. This will now put that on steroids. You will now be able to complete it in less time. In fact, you can choose 5 keywords very soon that you want to have embedded into the article. And as you're typing, it'll try to figure out where it's appropriate to enter the keyword, so that you can, by the time you're done with 2,000 word article or 3,000 word article, you may have used all, maybe 3 of the 5 keywords you wanted, or maybe 4 of the 5 keywords, or maybe all of them would have been embedded into the article itself. The point is, then you can automate it to your favorite blogging platform and have it scheduled out at a later time. You could be running your business. You could be doing the thing that you're really good at, which is, talking to customers, engaging with them, closing sales, doing the operation side, and all of your social media and content marketing would have been automated in the background. And by the way, based on what you're typing, it'll also find copyright-free images for you from Unsplash and Pexel and Pixabay. Now, all of these amazing things you could have done on your own, absolutely. The only thing is, it would have taken you days, hours, in some cases weeks, in some cases months to do. And you don't have that time to spend on grunt work, spend on time suck, right? So how can we alleviate that on the social side and on the content marketing side and make sure that you're doing 10 times more than you were doing yesterday? That's the mission that we're on, is helping every small business owner be a better underdog marketeer. And I always like to say marketeer because a marketer advertises and markets, but doesn't really have an obligation to sell. A marketeer, if you look at the definition, has an obligation to sell and hit the bottom line. And we are all underdogs. You're an underdog, podcast, host. I'm an underdog startup founder. All of your viewers and listeners are going to be in the same category. How do we collectively compete with the biggest competitors who honestly will bully us out of their industry, right? Because they have unlimited marketing budgets, unlimited people working on their marketing initiatives. Now it's time that small businesses take that back.
One of you mentioned key points over here, which is how to automate a lot of these things, but do it in an innovative, smart way, utilizing the tools that kind of level the playing field in a way. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, the things that you guys employ in order to kind of suggest these things in content production is like hiring a whole team of people helping out, right? And that's a game changer, because a huge company can use that, but also a small company can use that to their advantage. With everything that's happening in social media scene, the tons of content that's being produced every single minute, getting that voice out, getting noticed again is so much more difficult. You constantly have to produce interesting content, and so small businesses and small agencies and everyone is looking for that kind of edge to help them out and automate. Yeah. Where do you see things going from here? If everyone is going to be producing content and even more of it, and Google is going to have to figure out the trends, who's the most popular, what makes sense, what is the trending thing. Just from your own perspective, where do you think this is going to go to next?
You mean in terms of small businesses and how they're generating content, pushing out content, how they're doing social media?
Right, and how they're going to be able to continue to compete with these huge outlets, which have all the budgets and everything. I mean, clearly one of the avenues is to use tools like yours, but what is in the future of that you see? Like, what is the next step for Woofy as well to kind of continue to develop these different types of tools and things that could give people edge?
Yeah, one of the things that we're working on right now, which is very unique, we always love being unique, right? One of the things that we just shipped actually today, this morning, we announced on Friday, is a Google Chrome extension that allows you to literally type and autocomplete anywhere on the internet, whether you're typing blogs, you're typing an email, you're typing a note, you could be in a newsletter, whatever you're doing, it allows you as a Hello Woofy Google Chrome extension to autocomplete. All you have to do is hit tab and it'll come up with the right copy for you, taking away a lot of the grunt work. On top of that, if you double click on some of the words, it'll give you emoji recommendations that are going to be relevant to what you've typed in, what the article, the piece of content's about. Again, making sure that you're getting to the end result, which is an optimized set of words and set of sentences, and with emojis much faster. You could have done it on your own, but this definitely takes away 90% of the grunt work, right?
Right.
But now continue to push the limit with Amazon Alexa. And I think small businesses and podcasters like yourself, people who are looking to reach their audience, quicker and more intimately, are going to be using Amazon Alexa. And so one of the things that, we already know, podcasters and many other news publications already do this. They've built a Amazon Alexa skill. First of all, you need technical know-how in order to build that. It's like any other app store. It's like building any other app. you need the technical know-how, and once you do it, you deploy it to the store. Then it needs to be approved, and then you have a means to let your customers or your followers and your listeners know that it's there and that they have to download it to listen to your content, right? In our case, we're going to do all of that for you. For every podcaster, almost like iHeartRadio, we're going to be the iHeartRadio for podcasters on Hello Woofy, and people can follow one another. And if I follow you, Adrian, for example, and you're creating content and you're scheduling content to Facebook and LinkedIn, and then you can also schedule to Amazon's Alexa, and within 15 minutes, me as a listener can say, "Hey Alexa, give me the morning briefing, or give me the Hello Woofy briefing." And if I'm following you on my checklist, and I'm following I can follow as many people as I want, or brands, it'll then play you as a text. If you submitted a text, small piece of text, it'll read it for me. And you could be like, "Oh, check out the new episode with Arjun Rai talking about the next generation of SMB marketing this Saturday," right? And then that could be your promotional content. Or you could upload a piece of audio clip or a video clip. And so if I have a video version of, or I have a screen on my Amazon Alexa device, I can see you in my living room talking to me about the upcoming episode that I should be tuning in on. Or if you're a small business owner, you're a pizza shop down the street, right? Come in, check out the 20% discount, or contactless delivery or something of that nature. We are now allowing you to distribute content into the living rooms of the customer. So yes, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok, they're amazing. But what if, with everyone being stuck at home and not going to work and not leaving their house, how do we make sure that content creators like you, the underdogs, are competing head on with a CNBC, a Wall Street Journal, for distribution? And this is now allowing you to do that. So this capability will be around. It will be out in the next couple of weeks, and I'm super excited to be bringing it to content creators, because this is another example of how an underdog, podcaster, a marketeer, can compete with the biggest podcast in their category directly to the listener.
So looking forward to that capability because it's just going to change the game. I think it is about convenience, right? It is about how easily people can tune into things, right? I mean, we are in a society that is just so catered to in terms of like, hey, if it's loading too slow, I'm out. If it's whatever it is, like it's not now, it's not immediate, it's like people are just like out. So getting a capability of just by voice kind of summoning what you want to listen to, which is already happening to like Alexa Music, but now you can kind of tie into all these podcasts that you are subscribed to or following. I think that's going to be definitely adding on and definitely helping out the underdogs. So let's go to talking about Hello Woofy and the kind of the genesis of how did you start the company? Why did you start it? Why Woofy? What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So the name comes from your furry little friend, right? Your best friend. Dogs, definitely, a man's best friend. And at the end of the day, we want to be there on the content creation side. So we always like to say, just like your best friend, he's always there teaching you when, how, and what to post. Using obviously artificial intelligence and a lot of data science, hundreds of millions of data points on the back end that you will never see on the front end. You will just see a beautiful, user interface that is completing the words for you, suggesting emojis for you, suggesting hashtags based on images, even suggesting images based on what you're typing. It's like a 24/7 agency, or your best friend working for you, continuously and fetching content. So that's where the name comes from. Now, the history of it is, in terms of how we got to this point, I've always been in the advertising, the radio, the marketing space since I was, a teenager. I did my first company as a teen, got into the radio business back then in high school, and then ended up doing my own podcast, getting into the university, negotiating my way, getting a lot of scholarships that allowed me to pay for, the first 3 years of school, and building a company there, which is an agency, and then raising venture capital for another company, which, I learned a lot from, which was my first VC-backed company. And then I got into this because I knew the pain point of running the past 3 companies I am a front-end developer, front-end engineer, but I was the only one that was doing non-engineering tasks, right? At the last few companies that I had done at startups as a small business owner, I was trying to figure out how can I make sure that a social media scheduler doesn't just take my content like ABC and then just post it when I wanted to and on the social media platform I wanted to, because it doesn't tell me that it do really well because of the emojis, the hashtags, the copy, the images. I mean, today spacing is so incredibly important. How many verbs you use, how many nouns you use. There is no level of data science to figure out how can I become better. And as a small business owner, it became more and more clear that the big companies with their budgets were growing exponentially, they were squashing the small businesses. And today, with COVID-19, that is so true. That is so apparent that small businesses are absolutely crushed. Many of them have gone out of business because they didn't realize that digital marketing or anything digital, even having a website was important, and they thought they had a couple of years to get to it. Well, if you didn't get to it, 5 months ago, you're kind of at a huge disadvantage. But our whole motto with Hello Woofy is to give you an unfair advantage, absolutely unfair advantage against the big Goliaths of the world, and that's going to be your best friend, Hello Woofy.
Yeah, the tools is what's going to level the playing field. I mean, they still, the large companies, they will still have the megaphone, which is larger than yours in terms of being able to advertise and kind of drive still traffic to. But hopefully those who are producing interesting content can kind of bubble up because of the interesting content. But all being equal, you still need to kind of utilize other tools to help you produce it. Like you said at the opening of this podcast, those who are just diluted by being just spending their cycles. You have only so many hours a day to kind of produce a content and then push it to all these different platforms. You get so diluted because now you have to spend to do this and this and this and that, versus if you can kind of have a tool to help you out with that, then you can just do what you do best, which is produce content, make it interesting, make it valuable, create that content marketing that brings in companies interested in working with you or individuals working with you, because now you can just focus on them and on their story, on their value that they bring in that you want to share with others on the internet, and not you just kind of running around like a headless chicken trying to figure like, oh my gosh, like what format does this take, and all these different things that are just kind of grinding you to a halt. And if you're a small shop, that means a lot to you, because you need to hire a dozen people to help you out with all of that if you don't have a tool that can do that for you.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And then that's the whole thing is you don't want to wing it when it comes to being competitive. No one wins a race by just winging it, right? They train, they practice, they train and practice again. And when they know they have a big competitor in the race, they will do whatever it takes to be, more hydrated, have more training done, have more practice done. But when people are showing up to social media as a small business owner, they're like, oh, let's just put anything in and see what happens, and just spend $100 on boosting this post and see what happens. And then they're finding that they're disappointed because they haven't really taken a proactive approach to practicing, making sure that they're training. Well, the artificial intelligence has already literally been trained on the data and has literally been practicing over and over again to figure out what will do really well based on contextual, relevance and based on historic data. It's not, this platform is not winging it. And so when you have that kind of a partner, Hello Woofy, your best friend, then you're in a better position to be, like, oh, I can actually lean on this, platform. It's not going to do everything. It's not going to run my entire business for me. I mean, at least AI hasn't come to that point yet. But it'll be a huge it'll be a huge component of alleviating you of the pain points that goes into even curating an optimized post. Now, with content marketing, curating and making sure it's SEO optimized, that's where we're going with the Amazon Alexa initiative. How do we make sure people like you, creators and hosts and podcast individuals who have a lot of content, valuable content, can distribute beyond just social, because they might just be too dependent on social, and God forbid something happens to one of the networks. How do you move on with your business and not be so entirely dependent? Well, now you can be in their people's living rooms, and they can listen to your content and get your feedback and have a two-way conversation. Who knows? Our platform might allow you to have a direct conversation, so long as the customer and the listener has opted in, in real time. And you could do a podcast through an Amazon Alexa. This whole initiative and the way the world is going with IoT and hardware and artificial intelligence, as a company, we want to make sure that small businesses can use it simply, without having to invest a lot of infrastructure, a lot of capital. they can just turn on a button and be, on, just competing with the biggest companies in their category.
What are the things that you see in the near future, without kind of divulging? I mean, today was a huge day for you guys, right? So if you want to talk about that a little bit, why don't we start with that? What was the latest thing that came out from Woofy?
Yeah, so we just I ended up reaching out to Ryan Holmes, who's the founder of Hootsuite, a couple of months ago, and said, "Hey, is it possible we can integrate with your platform? Because a lot of our customers are looking to continue using Hootsuite, but they want the data science and the AI capabilities of our platform." Well, fast forward a couple of weeks, we integrated entirely with Hootsuite, and so Hootsuite customers, there are nearly 18 million social media professionals all over the world using their platform on a daily basis. If you're any one of them, you can now, for $4 a month or $49 a year, as it comes out to, have an AI capability, data science capability sitting on top of your Hootsuite account, and you can schedule whatever content you want. You can store content on Hello Woofy. You can curate it. You can suggest hashtags. All the amazing pizzazz comes at the price of $49 a year for a lifetime at the pro level. And so we dropped that in the press. Martech today, Ginny, who's the editor-in-chief, covered the news itself. A small company, an underdog, allowing small businesses all over the world who are using Hootsuite to now have a data-capable, AI-capable competitive advantage. So we're very excited about that integration. The Google Chrome extension was definitely a huge one as well. That allows you to compete anywhere on the internet. Whether you're typing an email, how do you type a better email? Whether you're typing a blog post and directly in WordPress, how do you type a better blog post, right? You're taking notes. Can we take complete the notes for you and, make sure that it's, along your tone and you have the right emojis? That is another initiative, right? And of course, on top of everything, we launched another Reg CF equity crowdfunding initiative where the last time we did it, a lot of our customers invested and own a piece of the company now. Well, we did it again. We bumped up the valuation because we went from 30 customers to 4,000. That's a whopping 13,000% increase in growth. And we did about $135,000 in just 5 to 6 months. It's a miracle of how we got here. I mean, the company definitely has like 40 cat lives, in the history of it. But we got here. We got here somehow. We believed in it, and we were on a mission to support every small business owner around the world.
Well, one of the things that really, and I have to, this is probably a place where I want to give props to Cody Crabb, who's a podcaster over here in Utah, and he introduced me to your tool, and I was blown away. I thought it was a typo at first because when I saw $49 a year, I was like, all these other automation tools that are out there, they cost like that amount a month, and so. What made you? I mean, obviously, you want to come into the market strong and just kind of bring in a lot of people and customers to your platform, but that's a very low price, relatively speaking, and so you guys are definitely shaking some things around over here. But it is a kind of a surprising thing, though, that you're integrating with Hootsuite. I get it that a lot of companies or a lot of individuals who are already using Hootsuite, for them it's just kind of like, oh, I'm going to get another layer for very inexpensive, very, very inexpensively get another layer of the automation, the AI components that Hootsuite doesn't have. But at the same time, Hello Woofy already provides a lot of that automation in terms of scheduling. You can do campaigns in your software, right? So what is the incentive of someone having not just switching to Hello Woofy, still having Hootsuite in a way, because they could just kind of like sidestep into your product and we say like, hey, it's cheaper and I got everything under one wing.
It's a great question. We view the integration as a co-creation opportunity. There are so many examples of companies that have a symbiotic relationship where they actually co-create and end up helping the same customer or the same category of customers by working together, as opposed to butting heads against each other, right? So we were looking for a partner like that. We were looking for someone that is a leader, is respected in the industry, and has a good size of a user base that we can have a huge impact, especially with the initiatives we've been on. Supporting small businesses at an affordable price point. And we were talking to the team at Hootsuite, and they definitely were looking into this category, if you will, of solutions that are lower price points for small businesses, and it just made absolute sense. We tried it out. We said, let's see what happens and see how it goes. And to answer your earlier point, the reason why we're keeping the price point really low is because we're either breaking even or we're making a tiny bit of profit on top, but all of that is going into product development and making sure that we're continuing to develop the features and the capabilities that our customers in our Facebook group, which is Content Masters by Hello Woofy, the features that they're asking us for are the features that they really like, and we can double down on that. It's going into that. Now, being venture backed and having venture capital does help when it comes to making sure that we have lights on and we're continuing to build product. But right now, this is not about entirely revenue. This is entirely about the feedback, qualitative, quantitative feedback from the right kind of demographic. We have nearly 1,500 individuals in our Facebook group. We have nearly 4,000 customers on our platform. That is a huge pool of customers and individuals who are small business hustlers, underdog marketeers, to be able to ask them, what is the kind of tool that you would really love to use, and how can we continue building it? So all of the initiatives we announced on Friday were in the spirit of that. Even the Hootsuite integration, we had a couple of customers asking, could you sit on top of a workflow I'm already used to, which is Hootsuite? And we were like, absolutely. Could you allow us to, use your technology outside of Hello Woofy so that I'm not typing entire blog posts in small screen where social media posts are supposed to be typed? Well, that's what Journal is. That's where allows you to type entire blog posts. And now with Google Chrome extension, you can do that anywhere. Can you introduce a Android app in addition to the iOS app? Because I only have an Android app. Certain countries around the world are more predominantly Android users. Well, a month and a half later, we developed a Android app which we shipped over the weekend. So things like that, we've been very cautious and conscious about making sure that we're staying close to the customer and building relationships with other vendors, other partners, and also other building technology that actually helps people just like you and me, who are just looking to build a business, just looking to get better at social and digital marketing, and that's where we're going.
Your Facebook group is pretty cool. I kind of scanned through and I interacted with it a little bit, and I think that's such a great idea to kind of get that feedback straight from your crowd. And it seems like you guys are very dynamic in terms of addressing it, and like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. So let's take a look at it and see if it makes sense to put it in right now or later in product development cycle. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the journal part of functionality.
Yeah, so Journal is. The idea behind that is everyone should be blogging. Even if you're a solopreneur, even if you're just a personality, or even if you're working for someone else, you owe it to yourself to have a brand online. Everyone should have a brand online. Everyone should have their first name, last name.com, or whatever the extension is, domain extension is. You owe it to yourself to build a brand online, because that's literally the currency you're trading with today as a small business owner, as an individual finding a new job. Whatever you're doing, people want to hire an individual that has a clout that they can add to their initiatives, right? So if you're going to work at a medium-sized startup and you are and they're into construction, the medium-sized company, they've raised $25 million, $100 million in funding. They are looking for construction influencers and people to take their company to the next level, right? Between you, who is an expert in your field about construction project management, and you have a blog, you have a course, you have everything you need to be the thought leader, and you're looking for a job, right? Versus another gal who's looking for a job and has no clout online, has no branding, they don't even own their own domain online, right? Who do you think the hiring manager is going to look at favorably, right? It's because you combine clouds together. People want to work with people who are just like them, right? And great minds think alike. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I also like to say you're the average of the 5 tools you end up using, because if they're good, then you'll be good. If they're great, you'll be great. If they're terrible, you'll be terrible. And so it's also important to keep that in mind. So that's kind of how I would answer that question. Is making sure that you're also surrounding yourself with the right kinds of factors that'll lead to your success. Whether it's people, it's products, it's your environment. That's all important. It all adds up.
Right. No, it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's because like owning your own domain name and because it is kind of almost like a new type of resume, right? It's like before you had like, all right, here's my resume, here's all the stuff that I've done, here's what I've learned, here's how I succeeded, here's how I failed, and all that. It's on a piece of paper. But now this is a new thing where they can see more stuff that you've done, more interaction, more interactive stuff. And they can go as deep as they want, right? If you have a bunch of blog posts and you talk about something, they see that you are a subject matter expert in something. Just like in a coding arena, having a project on GitHub, right, and showing your involvement is like de facto your resume nowadays if you're a coder, right? Because like if I can just tell you like I coded in Python and Java and whatever, like okay, then I'm gonna have to test you. But if I see what you've actually done, how you were involved, that's sort of like a preview to what that individual is going to be if they get hired into an organization. So it is vital to again use those tools to be able to produce content to kind of show that. And things like Hello Woofy is allowing you to do that more efficiently than just kind of scheduling posts that you do ahead of time, and just and just kind of let them get out over there. You still have to do the legwork. This tool takes it a little bit above the that kind of creative of just automation tools by the schedulers, as I call them, into helping you create content. And so I'm glad that you have this journaling option because a lot of these things are just like limited in terms of space, characters. Twitter 140 characters, so it's good to have something that allow you to do like a full blog post.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly where we're going with this. Is at the end of the day, it's on you to take any initiative, right? But if we can help you a little bit, get to the end point, then that's a whole win for me. It's a whole win for you. And I think that's the most important thing. I mean, know this, right? The life we want, the businesses we build, they're all dependent on how smart we become with our time, resources, and capital, especially when it comes to digital marketing in a world that is just becoming increasingly online. If you want the kind of lifestyle you're aspiring to, and you want the kinds of businesses that you've been seeing online, or you've been inspired by some guru, they have teams of people behind them. They have resources behind them. And the only way they got there was putting the work in. But now you can let the AI do the work and now magnify your own capabilities that are human, that you can replicate the human instinct and the human factor. Focus on that and let the grunt work be done by the AI. And that's really where we're going. And we're going to continue building tools that are going to do exactly that, is magnify and amplify the human factor in terms of building businesses or saving time or living your life, and reducing and alleviating you of the grunt work and the time suck. And we're just getting started with organic marketing. Content marketing is now our next thing. In-home advertising and marketing with Alexa Home is next. Paid marketing will be eventually by the end of the year. We're going to build an entire suite. We could be the next Salesforce, which is why obviously we're encouraging individuals who are using our platform to invest in the company and own a part of it. For as low as $100, you could literally own a piece of the company on Reg CF equity crowdfunding at republic.co/HelloWoofy.
Awesome. I'm so glad. And this is funny. Like even initially when we talked about, I was like, oh my goodness, you guys are doing such an awesome job that like, I want to invest in your company. It's like, yeah, you can. And it's creating this kind of shortcut between, like you see value and you're like, wow, I definitely want this to succeed. I love the story. I love what you guys are doing. I love where you're heading. And it's almost like I don't want to wait until you guys are going to go IPO and become the next Salesforce or Workforce or anything else. I want to be in now because I want to support that. Not only from investment, obviously investment is part of it, but it's like it's the good stuff that you guys are doing and helping out these small businesses, especially now, like you said, with the corona and pandemic. Who's going to know what's going to happen next? And so small businesses need that extra edge to help them out. And so it's cool that you guys are open to that and not just kind of closing it in on VCs who are can drop a couple of $1 million to invest in your company. That you actually are kind of democratizing it in a way where people can invest even as small as amount of it as $100. So that's really awesome. Kudos to you for that. I was going to ask you about that question, but you're right on the ball with that. So I'm glad. We'll put links in the show notes where people can click on and find out more about where they can invest and drop a dime or two and get in early on this. Now, switching a question, I want to go back to the emojis. This is kind of like, I'm going to kind of follow with a couple of questions to you just to ask your opinion as a subject matter expert in this field. Why do you think emojis are so, because emojis have been around for quite a while. Why do you think emojis are just so magnified right now in terms of their impact? What do you think is the kind of the science or the logic behind it?
So you said it actually in the beginning of the show, hieroglyphics, right? We're heading in that direction.
Right.
History is so cyclical. It repeats itself over and over again with different characters and different locations, but history has always repeated itself with different players. And keep that in mind, because if you're ignoring history and you're not reading, there's a great book called What If. It talks about what if some of the biggest, most impactful world events went a different way. How would society look like? You always want to think of it that way, because if you don't think of it that way, then you're always bound to make mistakes that other people have already made, and you could have saved yourself the pain by learning from the lessons that came as a result of making the mistake. Because we are all living and breathing, individuals of previous, previous ancestors who built businesses, built civilizations. They made mistakes, and then the next generation came along, right? And then the next generation. We're all, standing on the shoulders of giants, as the saying goes. So with regards to emojis, it is another version of hieroglyphics. Many of the cultures around the world, almost all of them, even back in caveman era, were communicating using visual depictions of whatever they were trying to say. One thing led to the other, and they became very much formalized into languages. But if you take a look at the Chinese language, it is, it are little pictographs of what's happening, like a depiction. It's a picture with another picture with another picture that collectively means a different meaning. Japanese is the same way. Korean is the same way. Many of the the South American languages are very similar as well. If you take a look at the Aztecs, the Mayans, a lot of Egyptians, for example, in the Middle East, all of these languages have something common. We are all visual creatures, and one thing led to the other, and we start building fonts and actual languages with I guess sticks and curves and whatnot. And they obviously form letters eventually. But if you take a look at how we're going forward, all the social media platforms that started initially, like the Facebooks and the LinkedIns of the world and the Foursquares, they were left behind when the Pinterest of the world came out. And then the Pinterest of the world were left behind when the Instagrams of the world came out, and the Snapchats of the world. Those platforms were left behind when what is static initially became movable, which is a video, and that's what TikTok is today, and what Byte is today, which is another competitor to TikTok, the underdog itself. So you always have to ask yourself, how am I becoming more and more visual so that my customers are able to convert faster and faster? Because I already know my customers, much like me, are visual. They don't have a lot of time and patience to read through a paragraph or giant paragraphs of content before they say, oh, I want to learn more. And that's where we're coming from, is using emojis to be contextually relevant. There's 3,000. So we try to alleviate the grunt work of you having to go through the entire keyboard and figuring out which 2 emojis or 3 emojis will do really well. We already have data that shows what may do really well and what has actually done really well in the past. And then if you don't like any of them, that's fine too. But on top of that, in the Hello Woofy platform, you also can see, based on different blinking emojis, which emojis are actually being used in real time around the world. And that gives you an unprecedented level of understanding of not only how you're doing, but how is the entire world doing. If you want to follow the trends, that's on you. If you want to stay away from the trends, that's also on you. But you deserve that capability to have that option to decide for yourself. Otherwise, other small businesses, they have no idea. They're going to get hit with emoji marketing in 5 years, and other people who are using Hello Woofy are going to be like, yeah, I've been using emoji marketing to drive engagement and uplift for the last 5 years. And who knows where Hello Woofy will be in 5 years? We're definitely 5 years 5 years ahead.
It's so cool. This reminds me of this TED Talk where a guy had a sort of like a tactile haptic feedback vest, which was analyzing the tweets for that region where he was delivering that TED Talk, and it was literally providing him like a haptic feedback, like a little vibration and different patterns of to know how he's doing in real time when he was delivering that TED Talk. As people were tweeting, the machine learning was kind of extracting summary of like the sentiment, and he was getting that as a feedback. So it's an amazing that kind of reminded me of the emojis, because the emojis in a way are similar in that respect, that they not only communicate the concept or like shortcut to the concept, but also provide that maybe emotional feedback or the sentiment that people have around something, right? They talk about it, and again, and if you have enough of those, then you can kind of trend it and see like what kind of topics or getting more popular or less popular or keywords.
And that's why we're going after audio. Audio is going to be next. When you're listening to Adrian in your living room, if you uploaded your 2-minute clip in voice, talking about the upcoming episode or giving a quick snippet of like, this is a great tip for you, and et cetera, et cetera. That is like having you in the living room talking to me and a million people, right? All of your followers can have you in their living room for 2 minutes at a time per briefing. Or you can have a piece of text and have Alexa read it, or you can have a video clip. You could be in there, on the Amazon Fire TV saying, "Hey guys, thanks so much for following Adrian. This is what's coming up next week on our podcast. Make sure you tune in, and this is a quick snippet of what's coming up." And you play a quick 30 seconds of the clip from that's going to be next week, right? That is happening in the living room. You don't need a cable company. You don't need a monitor. You don't need a computer to be in their living room to be able to get the message across. Emojis are the exact same way. We know exactly what certain vegetables with another vegetable or a certain finger, gesture with another face will mean, right? We just know it. Use that to your advantage and to drive engagement and drive purchase intent, because that's what Adobe is saying with their research and the Adobe Emoji Trend Report. It is happening. The only question is it happening in your sales funnel? And if it's not, try Hello Woofy.
Switching to the opposite side of the spectrum, which is AI and what's happening next. It's kind of scary what the capabilities of some of these machine learning algorithms right now can deliver. But what do you see in the future? How far can we take this before the AI is going to start writing article for us, and we all just going to end up on a beach somewhere and just chilling all the time instead of producing anything?
Yeah, so like I said, I think the human factor is always going to be amplified. If you take a look at what Henry Ford was trying to do with the Model T, right? He wasn't looking to remove the human being from the equation. He was looking to get the human being from point A to point B faster, more sustainably, and in some cases more safely than a horse buggy or just riding a horse, right? He didn't take the human out of it. Fast forward, what happened a couple of weeks ago with SpaceX, right? Elon didn't take the astronaut, the human being, out of the space program because that's what the next generation of space programs are going to look like. No, it is always going to have the human factor in it. It's only about the technology, the vehicle, in our case, Hello Woofy, that's going to elevate the human race, right? The civilization, and we're pushing it forward. So artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is always going to be a co-creating opportunity. Integration, we are creating and moving forward in a parallel line. There's not, for us to win, they have to lose, or for them to win, they have, we have, so on and so forth. It is always going to be a co-creating opportunity. If you take a look at, society and history overall, I'm very fascinated by history. Anytime that mentality came across where it's a zero-sum game and people then actually collaborate and partner and create, they put up walls instead, that hasn't really led to any advancement of civilization, right? That has led to warfare, more animosity, and things of that nature. The true essence of humans that coming together and building something has, quite honestly, I'm a huge Trekkie fan. I love Star Trek. If you take a look at what that kind of a ecosystem has resulted in, is because the entire planet unified for the first time under Starfleet. And then under the Federation, or is it Starfleet and then Federation? Federation is of the planets in the universe, or in the galaxy, right? So that kind of creation is what we need to focus on. Whether we're running a business, whether we're talking about family, or talking about friendships, create, meld, and collaborate and co-create is my motto.
That is very interesting that you have that kind of perspective, because I hear it. Maybe it's my confirmation bias, but I hear it more and more because I've got engaged in several different projects, and one of them is open source hardware, in which the concept of sharing designs, which typically from a business point of view, you would think like, well, we're going to design something, then we're going to open source it, share it so everybody can replicate it. Well, that's going to kill our business. But in fact, it was the opposite, where it actually allows for faster product development and then continuing evolution of it. And there's still enough space for everyone to kind of individually implement it and still make money, because obviously the money is still the economics of it are still there, right? We're not in federation yet where there is no money that but I love the analogy that you brought in, because that's kind of it's a mind shift, right? It's a mind shift in how we perceive competition. May have been good up until now, and maybe there are some still cases where competition is good, but collaboration seems to be edging up against it, because you can develop so much faster. And there's a lot of this, I think, from a even resource perspective, you don't have the overlap of like, well, this company is developing a new, a better hammer, and this company is developing a better hammer, and now they have a redundancy of efforts, right? Versus like if you would do it collaboratively in a open source kind of environment, you wouldn't have it would be just more efficient. So it's interesting too for you to say what you mentioned.
Think of it again in history, right? Because I'm absolutely fascinated by history. I grew up on a History Channel. How did our country survive what it went through when it was just 13 colonies, right? The French helped. Why did the French help an underdog country of a speck on a small 13 colonies, right? Why did the French help? They obviously had a vested interest. They obviously wanted to help, and the American colonies were obviously looking for help, and they were on a mission to make sure that they were independent and they were away from the monarchy and whatever the mission that and the passion that they drove the whole Revolutionary War against, right? That co-creation allowed one of the biggest empires on earth to not be able to take back their colony. And it's very powerful, and I'm always fascinated by history. The biggest social media scheduler in our industry has partnered with probably the smallest social media scheduler with 4,000 customers, right? And it'd be interesting to see how that partnership goes in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and a couple of years. And I would encourage small businesses to think about it the same way. If there are two pizza shops in the same town, can you drive traffic using geo-targeted traffic and make sure you're sending customers to each other, right? If you're I don't know, I'm making things up. If say you're a shopping mall and you don't have enough traffic coming into your skincare, departments or your fashion departments, whatnot, can you find influencers in your area and make sure that you're giving some incentives to them so that they can talk to their network, their neighbors, their influence of a community that they have to make sure that they're driving traffic, or maybe they help you come up with an e-commerce solution to go online, because they might already be talking to some of the biggest brands online on social media, being influencers in fashion and skincare and whatnot. It's all about co-creating, and I always want to encourage people. I mean, you and I are co-creating right now. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that other people are benefiting from this conversation. I certainly hope so. But then add technology, then make sure you're hitting the bottom line, then make sure that you're giving back as well. Those are all important points. And then when competition is there, make sure you're competing with honor. And it's important to make sure that you're always positive about the competition itself. Respect your competitors, because they're there for a reason. But I can definitely name a couple of companies that could be run in a better way with better founders. But overall, I think I have respect for all of my competitors, and all of our vendors and partners are absolutely deserving of a lot of respect. And that's why we're working with them. That's exactly why we're co-creating with them.
I'm amazed that this relationship has formed. Just because of a sort of like the overlap of functionality. But like you said, you kind of painted how they already have established customer base and they already have things in their pipeline, and this is kind of like adding a functionality onto what they already are going with. It's going to be interesting for you guys how that's going to work for you, because for obvious reasons, you guys are way more cost effective, which is going to hit up that smaller base of small businesses, which are like, hey, this is good enough for us.
And by the way, SpaceX does the same thing. If you think SpaceX is a giant of a company and super successful, if you know the history of SpaceX, they died so many times. We're on our 45th, lifeline ourselves, right? Cat lives. But SpaceX today partnered with NASA. They understand the benefit of that partnership with the biggest space organizations, biggest government-led space organization in the world. They know, they respect it, and they know that they need them to be able to succeed to the next level. Now, whether they need them in 100 years or 50 years is who knows. But I always think that the underdog will always be working with the biggest, most respected company in the industry or the organization to get to the next level. And what happens based on that symbiotic relationship is only going to benefit the customers and the end users at the end of the day. And I truly hope that is always the case, because sometimes companies get gobbled up and then they get shut down, and that hurts customers. But I think you're seeing more and more examples of Amazon acquiring Zappos and leaving Zappos by itself. Walmart acquiring Jet. Unfortunately, they have shut down Jet but I think that's more because of COVID-19 and the way the situation turned out. But originally, Jet was not supposed to be shut down. They wanted to leave it by itself and leave its own customer base separate. But I think that's just something to keep in mind, is you're focusing on the customers at the end of the day.
Right. One of the things that I see that's, and especially what's hitting up like in my domain over here of podcasting and video podcasting, is when you provide value for free. And you can argue that a lot of stuff on YouTube right now is like, basically just, you can pretty much look up anything on YouTube and learn different things and whatnot. But the aspect of how companies, and I'm getting approached more and more by companies right now to wanting to create content marketing, meaning they want to talk about, and I invite them. Like, that's why I love talking to subject matter experts such as yourself, because you bring in value, bring in perspective on what's going on, something that someone would take you, probably, many hours looking on the internet and trying to research about all these different things, social media, automation right now, emoji research and all of that. So this is you providing value by sharing the knowledge, sharing the pro tips, sharing your experience. And in that, what's weaved in kind of naturally is conversation about your company. And we're rooting for you because you're bringing in value. And that's such a good symbiotic, I think, combination, because people don't feel like that kind of marketing is kind of shoved down their throat, where they're like, oh, you got to buy this 2 for 1, or, the standard kind of sales tactics. People are going
to be the interesting dinner guest, or are you going to be the one that's like just selling and at the dinner just to make a couple of bucks, right? You want to be the interesting dinner guest. And those are the people who get further along, who can actually have conversation, get business done at the same time. And I've learned that from Street Smart, right? There's no class for this. There's 13 years of just grinding it out, Street Smart, building a couple of startups, failing over and over again, and then, learning and, succeeding the next time. You just have to put yourself out there and learn from that.
Right. And adding value. I mean, it's almost like, in giving, we receive, in a way that we give this value, and what we receive is people's attention, right? And we get that, hey, this is a good place where you can kind of learn about these things, and it's not this kind of like overused sales tactics, which kind of were working in the past, the pressure and all these different things. Now it's all about value. Like, how can you help me? And if you take the time to help me, then you're building a relationship with me, right? Because now you're spending this time and educating me, which is cutting out from your valuable time. You're doing that. So I'm like respecting that, because you're doing that for me. That's value. And I'm not saying like I'm obligated or a customer's obligated to do anything with you because of that, but that is the initial step. It's that initial building of the relationship, because you remember like, wow, okay, we talked to Arjun about it and he kind of educated us. Like, that's great. I'd love to learn more about it. And I think that's the space in which we are right now. And I believe that that's where podcasting kind of brings in a lot of help in that space, because now companies and businesses or individuals can engage with podcasters, impart their knowledge, share the value, and benefit from that exposure by doing that.
Exactly. And just keep in mind, small businesses today, they need to work together. And if they can work together, they'll win no matter what. I think one of the things that COVID-19 has really proved is, while everyone was at a disadvantage, they're going to have to get their shit together, right? Because the big companies, they did fine. And some of them, oddly enough, they were actually, applying for SBA loans and things of that nature, and they got called out for it. They were still trying to screw small businesses all over the world. I hope I can say that on your show. You can, beep it out.
You totally can.
And so you're seeing that mentality over and over again from big companies doing that to small businesses in a situation like the one we found ourselves in right today. But when we give you tools and we help you compete, then you're going to have that fighting chance you've been deserving. as a small business owner, as a small coffee shop. A couple of months ago in the Wall Street Journal, and I'm looking at the time, so I think I have a couple of minutes left. A couple of months ago in the Wall Street Journal, this new CEO, after Howard Schultz came out, and he said, "We are only making data-driven decisions." And I have a small cutout of the Wall Street Journal because I still like that paper feel, and I still get Wall Street Journal delivered back then. I stopped it since then, but I used to get it delivered. And I have that cut out because it says that it's so important. It's a coffee shop like that. And I was looking at how Starbucks has grown over the years and how fast it has grown. If they're making data-driven decisions and there are 10 Starbucks around your coffee shop, how are you going to compete? The only thing you're going to compete on is your ability to connect to the customer better, faster, and actually recognize each person's name. Yeah, there are a couple of baristas at Starbucks who know me personally because I go there all the time, or Joe's Coffee, or Think Coffee, whatever that may be. But it's storytelling and creativity that a small business owner is the only currency that they have to compete with. And at the end of the day, if I can take away all the other, beeping, shit that you have to focus on, then you can compete. And that's where we're going to do. And I truly hope I can get some good feedback from your audience, what we're doing really well on the product, what we can be building for you on the product, on the platform, and honestly, how we can help you. So, reach out to me. Arjun at hellowoofy.com is my email. Reach out to me anytime.
We're going to pop in all the contact info in the show notes. Kind of closing out, because you're a business, you're running your own business, so you're kind of like you're eating, no pun intended over here, like you're eating your own dog food in a sense that you're utilizing your own tool, right, to stay in social media's eye and propagating the information about your product and services. What other tips do you have for startups? I mean, you clearly are an entrepreneur that you've started a bunch of businesses, you've learned, you failed from that. But outside of using your own tool, what else do you give me some tips or tricks or pro tips that you want to share with from your own experience, with some of the listeners who are thinking about starting a business or running a small business? What else can they do aside from like using a great tool like Hello Woofy to kind of get up to speed?
Sure. Use a great tool like Fiverr or Upwork. I mean, you don't need a co-founder to build your tech stack if you're building a tech company, right? That's the general, recommendation that people give is, go find a co-founder, build a company, give them half the company, whatever, percent of the company, and go, and then apply to an accelerator and get some funding. That is absolute BS. And any investor that says that to me, again, I will put them on my blacklist, because I have a blacklist, I have a gray list, and a white list of investors. I've been around the block a long time. And what you need to be doing today as a solopreneur, or having two co-founders, what you guys should be doing is optimizing your time and resources. Go find talent on Fiverr to do all your graphic and copywriting and WordPress, integrations for hundreds of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars that, agencies here in New York or in the US or in Canada or in any parts of Western Europe will give you as a quote, right? We built our entire website, the front end, the marketing website, entirely for like $4,000 or $5,000, all in video editing, graphic design, copywriting, customizing the WordPress theme, the WooCommerce, all of it inclusive for $4,000 to $5,000. Versus an agency here in New York, they would put a one page, maybe 3 pages up and do some graphic and copywriting. That'll cost you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
Wow.
Be efficient with your time and resources, right? Delegate, and that's something that's super important. And then when you need to find tech talent, depending on the complexity of your software, maybe all you need is a simple app to be built. You can find that on Fiverr as well. Developers who are super hungry, super passionate, super technically savvy to do that for you. Or go to Upwork. Upwork is good for longer term initiatives, like several weeks on end or months on end in an initiative. But Fiverr is great for quick jobs that are going to be a couple of days long or maybe a week long, and you want to be resourceful and efficient with that. And the more you do that, the more capital you'll have in the bank to spend on paid marketing. Because once you had a small subset of users, you can find millions of examples of those users using Facebook lookalike audiences. Don't spend on paid advertising until you get a good chunk of users and customers, because that'll allow you to scale up as well. Don't waste money on paid marketing until you do that. Build up your SEO presence. Blog a lot. Type a lot of content. Get into different profiles, Crunchbase, AngelList, LinkedIn, whatever you can do. Get as many profiles online as possible, because when people start searching for you and they're looking for clout, and also, by the way, partnering with other individuals who have clout will also help. focus on that and building up, because that takes weeks on end. When you search for Hello Woofy today, you'll see us everywhere. But that effort, we started over a year ago. It takes that long to make sure that you can, propagate throughout all your Google searches or Bing searches or whatever you're calling them. Those are just some of the quick tips I'll give. Obviously, sign up on our newsletter at hellowoofy.com for more tips. Try using our platform, giving us suggestions of what is working, what's not working for you. Join our Facebook group, Content Masters. There are a ton of tips and tricks in there. In fact, there are a lot of people just like you, Adrian, in their podcast business owners, right? Who are helping each other. Many times, people ask me a question about how to use a feature in the platform, and even before I can get to it, there are like 5 comments from other customers already there, and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad you guys are helping each other out. And so join Content Masters, because truly it's a blessing to have that community.
Awesome. Thank you for those tips. That was just such a huge pill of compressed information and so valuable, because it's so true what you just said, especially nowadays. In the past, you had to partner with people that you had to kind of give them a part of equity of your company, but nowadays you can outsource a lot of that stuff. But that's so cool that you mentioned all these different things. In terms of, last question for you, in terms of VC, those who want to take that their startup company into the next level, what are some of your experiences in that domain? What have you learned by being part of like accelerators, or what would you do again? What would you not do?
Yeah, don't join an accelerator unless it's reputed, highly reputable in terms of, again, the clout, right? There are so many accelerators that are kind of trying to want to be accelerators, and they end up being a waste of time. And you want to make sure that if you're getting no's over and over again, then you want to make sure that you're going to refine your pitch. You're not just doing the same thing over and over again, because to be honest, that's the definition of insanity. Refine your pitches, come up with wireframes. If you don't have wireframes and you're at the idea stage, do not pitch until you have your wireframes and you've talked to customers already, and then build a clickable prototype that you can show up, an angel investor, not even a venture capitalist, then you can get some funding to build it into a real prototype and get real customers, get some revenue, and then go to a venture capitalist. But to be honest, with where the SEC is going this year potentially and next year with Reg CF equity crowdfunding, we've already done one campaign and we raised a little under $400,000 in funding. We're back on Republic. We just raised, I think, as of now, $4,500 in 2 days or so. That we just raised $4,600 actually. Someone added another $100 while we were on the show. That is an automated way for you to raise capital from your own customer base and people who are actually going to have. It's like the Robin Hood analogy. The village is now able to invest in your initiative and your project, not just the king. And I think that's going to really force VCs to think in a different way and treat founders in a different way, because I do think a lot of venture capital firms, especially ones that are highly reputable here in New York and San Francisco, around the world, for a very long time, they've sat on top of a very high, a throne, essentially, pedestal, and that's going to be changed with Reg CF equity crowdfunding. So there are rumors that it might go from $1,070,000 as a threshold for Reg CF to $5 million. Who knows what happens? Obviously, check with your financial advisor and your lawyers and attorneys to make sure that you're making a right decision. But then also Reg A is going to be increasing as well. That'll allow me as a company, when I'm trying to do Series A, Series B level funding, I don't have to run around the valley and not running my business at that point, right? I can automate it, raise capital from the audience, my own customer base, and the customers can own a piece of the company. So as you become the next Salesforce, the next Microsoft, we're not making tens of millionaires and tens of billionaires or whatnot. That's the story behind Microsoft. We could be literally helping all of our customers become more successful themselves, because they put a couple $100 and a few $1,000s into our company, and they believe in the vision, the work ethic, and the story of how we got to this point. And I think that's going to completely change the VC landscape.
I love that, because it becomes an ecosystem then, right? It's like you're using a tool that you're supporting with your dollars, you're voting with your dollars, you're engaging in a community that you helped building, in which case you have an input on how it's going to be shaped in the future and that in part helps it succeed, because it's that feedback of data going back and forth. What is really needed? I am a customer, but I'm also an investor in your company, and that's a interesting model, and hopefully that's going to continue. And in which one hand washes the other, and it just continues on, and it's in a supportive network without these sort of external entities that they can kind of sit on you and drive it in whichever direction they want, because they put in the biggest chunk of money, and now suddenly you're beholden to them. And even though you have a different vision, you may need to follow what they have, because they have so much clout because of the investment amount that they put in.
My last tip will be never raise capital from an investor that has never built a company before. If they've been managing directors of the biggest funds in the world, they've come out of MBA school, business school, and went straight into being an analyst and associate. First of all, never have a conversation with an analyst or associate. It's a complete waste of time. You must be talking to a managing director or a general partner. And if you can't get to a person like that, you need to really focus on your ability to network and get to those individuals. Maybe you're doing it absolutely wrong, right? It's not hard to get to a managing director and general partner. They're speaking at events. You get a warm introduction, but do not waste your time with individuals who don't have vested interest in the fund and have decision-making powers in the fund itself. Always make sure you're being optimizing your time with who is on the other end of the call itself and the pitch. I almost never go to pitch events anymore where only the speakers are only associates, principals, analysts. I always make it a point to go to at least a panel that is predominantly founders of funds, because they understand what it's like to actually scrap capital together and then invest in entrepreneurs, or partners and general partners and managing directors who've actually built companies before, and they know exactly what I'm going through being in the trenches. And that's the same thing, by the way, you should be focusing on when it comes to finding employees and co-founders. Find people who have scabs on their skins, the scars of running something, running a previous business. Never work with anyone who isn't an expert, a thought leader, an expert in their field, just because of the textbooks they read. They're actually experts because they've done the shit that they're talking about.
I love that. Thank you for these tips, and here you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is this podcast was not only talking about social media and how you can up your game in that space, but also like a little VC tutoring session over here. And so I really appreciate you sharing that, because I in the past done that too, back in many years ago in the .com era, and so we went through like a whole process of talking to VCs and angels, and we've experienced exactly kind of like what you described over here. And if I had a time machine, I could have listened to you telling me this and telling that to myself back in the day, because we had a pretty interesting, let's put it this way, experience. But so thank you for sharing your experience, and I wish you all the luck. Although I don't think you're going to need much, because you guys seem to be on the ball with everything, and I love your story. I love how you're supporting small businesses. I love your outlook in building this ecosystem of investors and clients at the same time, who are shaping the company that's moving forward, and at the same time kind of getting what they need in order to succeed. I truly believe in that kind of ecosystem. I think you're right on the money with that. And with that, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate that you took the time out of your busy day. I know you're super busy building out your company, but hopefully this is going to give people an insight into how you started at this fairly still early stage, and in a couple of years, when you're going to be IPOing, this as a behemoth company, I hope that you're going to remember this podcast and remember your own views on things, and you're not going to get squashed by the huge machinery that may be trying to influence how you're going to be running the company in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll be back. We'll come back after IPO.
Awesome. Arjun, thank you again for being on the show. We'll talk to you later. Thank you. And
bye.
And for those of you who are new to the show and you like what you see over here, please consider subscribing and watching some of our other conversations with interesting people. This is the theme of the show, where we bring in interesting subject matter experts from various fields, and we invite them to share their stories, to share their experiences, to share their knowledge and their failures and pretty much everything that shapes them to push what they do. And I do that because I love learning, and hopefully you are a lifelong learner just like I am. I believe that most people are. And so consider taking a look at our channel, youtube.com/apodcast, or go to our website, apodcast.com. Check it out, comment, Feedback is important in kind of shaping what we're doing over here. So I appreciate your time in doing that. And until next time, I'm Adrian Sinclair, and this is a podcast with interesting people. Thanks.